Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. Welcome to our first full episode of 2021. This is the beginning of a series we are calling Know Better, Do Better. Who is we? Well, I am so glad you asked. A good friend and fellow financial planner, Chloe Moore, and I have teamed up to break down some hot financial topics. This series was birthed from some conversations that Chloe and I had where we were lamenting these trendy money-making narratives that people had bumped into and ended up making some poor decisions that were not based in knowledge or on their own personal financial situation. Sometimes these narratives have such a stronghold on people that they lash out when they hear something contradictory to what they have previously heard. Now, get-rich-quick schemes are plentiful, but people who fall prey to them seldom have made any effort to get rich slow. So what are we doing? We're breaking down those clickbaity articles, those scams that exist, the misinformation, all these kind of hot topics that are just, oh, we're going to get rich and you got to do this if you want to create wealth and I want to make my money work for me. You know, all the things that are being said, so that when something feels too good to be true, you can have the information that you need to support why it feels that way. I think that's the big thing. It's like, I don't feel right about this, but I'm not sure exactly what's wrong with it. And sometimes we pull the trigger and we regret that decision. So what are we going to be talking about? Like I said, all those kind of hot, trendy topics: home ownership, starting a business, refinancing a mortgage, receiving windfalls, whether that is a tax return, an inheritance, one of those accident settlements, the lottery, you name it, what to do when you receive a windfall. We'll also be talking about wealth transfer and the mistakes that are made for wealth that is not transferred. After that, we're going to talk about what's killing you. Little expenses or the big expenses, because a lot of people think that it's the little expenses. If I just spend less at Starbucks, I'll be rich. While you may need to spend less at Starbucks, I don't know that that is the thing that is really killing your budget and holding you back from reaching your goals. After that, we'll talk student loans, life insurance as an investment, helping family members to your detriment, and some very risky investment trends that people also fall prey to. Now, I thought that we should start by getting to know Chloe the same way that we learn about other guests, and that's by hearing her money memoir. And if you're new to the show, you can learn more about me, Lauryn Williams, by checking out previous episodes. I have told my financial story over many, I think something like 13 episodes, where I get down into the nitty-gritty details of me. Today is all about Chloe, so let's hear our new co-host of the series, Know Better, Do Better, tell her money story. Oh my goodness, Chloe, I am so excited for this series that we are getting ready to do. I just told everyone a little bit about how this thing came to be, but I think it's really important that we introduce you, the person. And since this podcast is all about having people share their money story, I thought what better way to introduce you to the audience than to have you tell your money story. So are you ready to kind of spill all the beans about who you are from a financial perspective?
I'm ready.
Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast. Let's do this. All right. So let's just start with, where are you from? Tell us how it all got started. What did your parents do? Do you have siblings? Give us the kind of basic rundown.
Sure. So I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. And so I've been in the South my whole life. I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I grew up with a working class family. My mom got pregnant with me at the end of high school, at the end of her high school year, senior year. And so she had me her freshman year of college at age 19. So because of that, my grandmother raised me, and she was kind of the person who kind of served as my mom and kind of helped me with all the life lessons and things that I learned so that my mom could finish college. And my grandmother was a retired school teacher. And so she raised 4 kids of her own. And then she also raised 2 cousins that were twins. And they were about 9 years older than me. And then she also raised me. So she had a lot of kids in the house and had a lot of responsibility over the years and acted as mother to a lot of us.
So let's just pause there for a second, because I think sometimes this is lost on people. This is a really normal part of upbringings in communities of color, and definitely a common strand that I've seen in my life. But you just said that she was a school teacher and she raised her 4 children, 2 additional cousins.
And then me.
Right. So how do you pay for that? How does a school teacher's salary cover all these people? Were all the parents of these additional children chipping in? What do you kind of remember about how that works out?
Yeah, that's very interesting that you asked that. So my grandmother was a widow, and she became a widow in her 40s, actually. So she was married to my granddad, and he was in the military. He fought in World War II. He came back from the war and was a mechanic and had his own shop as well. So between, his work and her work, they didn't have a lot of money, especially if you think about it in today's terms. They didn't have a lot of money, but she just made it work. And even, after my grandfather passed away, she was a single mom taking care of all of her kids and took in my cousins. My cousins are actually her brother's children. Their mom passed away after they gave birth to her. So basically he was a single dad with kids. He already had 3 kids and then had these twins, and was like, I can't work and take care of all these kids. And so my grandmother took the twins in. But I look back at how much she actually made and what she was able to accomplish just financially by taking care of all of us. And I don't know how she did it. And for me, it's like I have very little sympathy when I hear other people say, oh, I'm making $150,000 and I just can't figure out how to pay my bills, or I can't cut my spending. But it's like I was raised by someone who raised 7 kids on a very limited income. And we all went to college. We all accomplished a lot of things in our lives, though. And she was debt free.
The phrase that comes to mind is trying to make $1 out of 15 cents.
Yeah.
It sounds like she was financial planner extraordinaire because, like you said, she was debt free, not a lot of income, tons of expenses in the form of other people depending on her. And for us to become financial planners, I think you maybe took that lesson from your grandmother. She had to be excellent at planning and stretching those dollars as far as possible.
I learned a lot of money lessons from her, and I didn't realize it at the time, but just from watching her and learning. So, she would sit at the kitchen table. I'd sit there with her, and she would do her budget. She had a hardback book, and she wrote down all of her bills. I still have that book today, but she wrote down, every single bill that she paid. I would go with her. That was back in the day where you actually go physically pay your bills in person.
That's way back.
Yeah, I remember going to pay the water bill with her, going to pay the power bill with her. I learned a lot of those lessons about how to budget, how to take care of your money, how to save and save for a rainy day. Just all those things came from her.
So tell us a little bit more about your childhood. Was there a piggy bank? Was there an allowance? What was the neighborhood that you lived in like? Yeah, give us a little bit more of the rundown of what your upbringing looked like.
As far as savings and having a piggy bank, I do remember in elementary school, I started going to a magnet school in 3rd grade and went to academic magnet schools from 3rd to 12th grade. But I remember once I transferred to the magnet, we had a savings programs with the students. And so it was just a local bank in the area. So they would come to school and we would bring our little savings up to they'd set up a little cashier station or a little teller station in our library. So we'd all bring our little change and our money, and they would make deposits for us. So we learned how to make deposits and we learned how to save, and we set up our accounts there. I would bring my little couple of dollars that I got from either birthday gifts or Christmas gifts. I never really got a significant allowance. I got some allowance, but it wasn't consistent or significant. But I would save whatever I had and take that to our school savings day. And so we had those on a regular basis. That was one of the things I do remember about school.
Would you categorize yourself as a saver now? And do you think that if you are, looking back on that experience, that was building the foundation for how you behave financially now?
Definitely. I'm a big saver. I think the combination of, just learning how to budget and just being told always, from my grandmother and just uncles and everything, like save for a rainy day and having that school savings program. I think the combination of all those things kind of turned me into a saver.
Okay, so money kind of came from here, there, and everywhere in childhood life. Like you said, wasn't a lot, but you got the idea that like I have this and I have to put some of it aside. So what did you do as you kind of got older to start to earn money for yourself?
I got a little bit older and it was interesting. So I know, once you're 16, that's when you're legally, able to work. But I always wanted to work before then. And I think one of the reasons why is just my uncles, they were very generous. They'd always give me money at Christmas or during the holidays. So, and they always tried to help out, since my mom was a single mom and my grandmother was raising me. But it always came with strings attached. And so there was this expectation that I'm supposed to do what they wanted me to do, or, whether it was extracurricular activity or with my grades and different things. And so there were always these expectations that they had of me as a result of giving me money. So I thought of money as a way to have my freedom and to do what I wanted to do. And to be able to make decisions for myself without pressure from other people. So I always wanted to work, as soon as I could. When I turned 14, at the age of 14 and 15, you get a work permit and you could work before you're able to officially work at 16. And I tried like so many times, but I was unsuccessful.
Unsuccessfully?
Yeah, but literally as soon as I turned 16, I went and got my first job. My first job was at Kmart, and I was a cashier. And so that was my first job. And I remember at the time minimum wage was $5.15 an hour, so I made $5.25. So I was 10 cents over minimum wage.
Ooh, get it, girl, getting rich.
But yeah, so I remember getting that job, and I worked as much as I could. Like I worked, after school, I worked on the weekends. I think there was a limit to the number of hours we could work because of our age, but I did work, there. I also transitioned I worked in some retail jobs. I worked in fast food. So yeah, I had jobs as soon as I was able to work, and I've been working ever since.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So this is high school years, that first little job that most people get. And you mentioned earlier that your grandmother raised all these children and everyone went to college. So with this kind of like shoestring budget and making things work, what were kind of the conversations being had about why people should go to college, how you all would be able to afford college, and how did it end up playing itself out for you for what your plan was after high school and how to finance that?
Yeah, so something that's unique about my family, and I didn't realize it was unique until talking to other people, is that everyone in my family just about graduated from college. My grandmother went to college in the 1940s, and it's what's known now as Alabama State University, but it was a teacher's college back in the 40s. She went there and got her bachelor's degree. She was working on her master's degree and actually got about halfway done with that and left to start, raising kids and everything. So she didn't finish it. My mom, my uncles, everybody in my family, like they all went to college. They all went to Alabama State, actually. So I come from an HBCU family. So it was definitely a given that I was going to go to college. They didn't really talk to me or help me as far as like the process outside of, make sure you make good grades, try to get a scholarship. But I kind of had to learn some of those processes on my own. And then just the fact that I went to an academic magnet school, everybody in that school for the most part was going to college. And so we had good counselors and people that helped us with testing and all of the requirements and things to get into college.
That is truly amazing. And you're right, kind of outside the ordinary for what has been my experience. I told a story on a previous podcast about a young lady who didn't even know what the SAT was because no one in her family had gone to college, and found out from a friend at the lunch table that the exam was coming up and that it was necessary. And I think sometimes people take for granted, like just the education in and of itself is a part of financial knowledge. Because if you don't have the information to know, hey, you got to sign up for this thing called the SATs, and that's going to allow you to be able to fill out the FAFSA and get scholarships and et cetera, so on and so forth, you're already behind the ball as it pertains to the opportunities that are going to be available to you. And as you were talking, I didn't even think about the idea that I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers, so we roll deep. It's a lot of us. But there's 2 of us that finished college. Some have pursued college and haven't finished, and still that I am also a part of the group where the majority of us were not able to complete secondary education. So what a privilege it is.
Yeah, and my high school was super competitive. I remember going through middle school, we had a guy who we all went to high school and he literally went to college from middle school.
What?
And so, yeah. And so by the time we were graduating from high school, I remember he came back to visit because I was in the whole little Model United Nations group. And so we were doing a little thing at the Civic Center. And so he came to visit us. And I mean, yeah, he was talking about grad school and like we hadn't even started to go to college yet. But yeah, I mean, he was just super smart. And we had people in my school who got a perfect score on their ACT. I mean, even with me, like I can't remember my GPA, but it was above a 3.5. And I mean, I was at the bottom of my class. I mean, because we did AP classes. So the highest GPA was 4.3. It was super competitive. Like the person at the bottom of the class might have had like a 3.0.
That's really cool. Like just even being in an environment where people are challenging to be better. And like you said, kind of bottom of the totem pole is a 3.0 versus there's just not a lot of goals or visions or values, I feel like, in some other educational institutions. So, all right. So we make it to college, and tell us a little bit about what stands out to you about college experiences. What did you start to learn about money? What did you experience talking to your friends? Were there conversations about money? Because I feel like that's kind of the first time like you're in a quote unquote adult, but it's like adult with training wheels on is what I think of college as. It's like you still kind of got some like safety net to fall on, but at the same time, you have to really start thinking about financial decisions and having those discussions. So what was that like for you?
Yeah. So we'll back a little bit to my first job at Kmart. But I remember when I got my first job and I was 16. And so it was probably maybe 16 or 17. My mom got me a car and it was like a little $2,000 or $3,000 car that she bought. And I remember she brought it to me and it was like, here's your car. And she gave me like a $20 bill because back then you could fill up a tank with less than $20. But she was like, here's some money. And this is the first and last time I'm going to fill up your gas tank. And so from that point on, if I wanted gas, if I wanted to go places, I had to fill up my tank. And slowly she started to shift responsibility to me. So I remember even on weekends when she would go to the store, go shopping for the week. And I'd say, oh, I need some deodorant or I need some shampoo. It was like, right. You have a job now. Mm-hmm. You can pay for that stuff. So from 16 to when I graduated from high school, outside of like basic food and shelter, like I was pretty much financially independent. So when I went to college, that was the point where she said, okay, you can pay your car insurance. So I was paying my car insurance. I was paying literally all of my bills. Even when I was applying to go to college, I paid my application fee. I paid my testing fees. All of that was my responsibility. So when I went to college, luckily, she didn't make a lot of money and she still claimed me as a dependent. But because of that, I was able to use her income, which was low, and I got grants for college. I had some scholarship money, and the rest of it was either working or student loans. But I worked throughout college. I did work study during the school year. And then for, like holidays and summers and stuff like that, I would work pretty much 40 hours a week.
That's amazing too, because so often the narrative that I hear frequently is you should not be working. You should not have to do anything. Like going to college in and of itself, we just got to get my baby to school. And that's the most important thing. That's going to change the sun, the moon, and stars for them. But it sounds like you said, I mentioned that adult with training wheels on, that things kept being plucked away to give you responsibility, and it made you step into your own. And then also, like you said, just even that work-life balance of, I want to get this education. I also know that this education costs something, so I need to take my butt to work study and just have that work-life balance so that I can finance this degree that I know is going to take me somewhere. But having that responsibility, I feel like, is a good thing. It sometimes gets neglected now in the current narrative. Okay, so you made it through college, and then what had happened, girl?
But yeah, so an interesting thing that some people might not know about me is that I started college as an athletic training major. So I've always been deep into like exercise, fitness, just all things like sports related, even though I wasn't an athlete, but I love to exercise. So I knew I wanted to get into athletic training, and I found an athletic trainer in Montgomery when I was in high school, and I made up my own internship with her and basically like shadowing her for several months. And I went to, even like a summer program that was during high school for people that wanted to go into the medical profession. So I just knew this is what I was going to do. Once I got to my freshman year and I decided to take the classes, and I started signing up for biology and anatomy and all of those things. I was like, this is not fun.
This is for the birds. I am not here for it.
Yeah. I'm thinking, okay, I'm sitting on the sidelines. I'm waiting for somebody to get hurt, but you got to learn all the basics first. So yeah, that kind of turned me off. And I've always been really good at math and science and like logic reasoning. I've been good with money because I've had to, and I've learned a lot from my grandmother. So I talked to my counselor and I was like, yeah, this athletic training stuff is not happening. So she suggested financial planning. So I kind of shifted to that. I learned a little bit about it. And that's how I learned about financial planning and switched my major.
Wow. So you were of a time period where financial planning was an actual major. I feel like I must be a grandma then.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just didn't know that it was like, it might have been like the first couple schools that had financial planning as a major because.
Yeah, I think it was early on. Yeah.
Well, that is really cool. And I think too, this idea that like you get to school, you pick something and you have to stick with it forever and ever. We have to shed that. You're trying to figure it out. At 17, I have no idea what it is that I want to do. And to have to commit to that as a life choice forever and ever, it's just not a real thing. So if we got to make some changes, we got to make some changes. Even though I can see you in like the khaki shorts and a little polo shirt standing on the sidelines, I can totally picture you as athletic trainer Chloe. Like, it's a real vision I have.
Oh, yeah. I know. It's funny. And I have a younger sister. She's 13 years younger than me. And she was the athlete in the family. So she played basketball and since she was 5 and like went to college on scholarship. So now she's like a certified personal trainer and she does all the athletic stuff. And so I just kind of lived through her.
All right. So we made it out of college and then what? You go straight into financial planning? Always been in financial planning since then?
Yeah. So during college, I did internships. So we had a pretty good program and our counselors were kind of plugged in with a lot of the local firms in the area. So I did some internships that were unpaid, unfortunately. And so in the summertime, what I ended up having to do was I took my internship on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I had to like wait tables the rest of the time just to make sure I had enough money. So yeah, I would just, got in all the hours I could. And I ended up working like extra weeks because I needed to get in a certain amount of hours and I could only do it for a limited time. But once I got to my senior year, I started looking for jobs. And so I just started looking at different areas. Like I knew I wanted to stay in the South. So I started looking at different firms from different states in the South and did my research, went to websites, checked out the people, checked out what the firms were about and just started blindly like sending out my resume, sending out cover letters to a bunch of different firms. And I ended up getting a job at a firm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I moved to Louisiana like right after college.
And went into financial planning. So one thing that I think people think is one, we just mentioned financial planning as a major, and then you went straight into a financial planning firm. Spoiler alert, everyone. Well, actually, I already told you at the beginning anyway, that she is a certified financial planner. Is that we know all the things about money. And so you came out of school, you learned all this book knowledge, and you started working somewhere and you never made any financial mistakes yourself. Is that true, Chloe?
I mean, I don't feel like I've made any like egregious mistakes, but I've done like little stupid things here and there where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have spent money on that. But yeah, I don't think I've made any like major outside of quitting my job with no backup plan to start my business. But I still, like I said, I don't feel like that's a mistake, but it's something I probably should have thought of a little bit more.
Okay. So you didn't always have a fully fledged, flushed out financial plan that you executed perfectly.
Correct.
Some areas where you had room for improvement. I just think like sometimes people think we're unicorns and that we're not people. And my big thing is like financial planning is emotional. Finances in general are emotional. And so all the knowledge, expertise in the world is not going to be relevant if you can't be objective. And it's really hard for people to continue to be objective in their own personal finances.
Correct.
All right. So we talked financial failures. There were few. So tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are now. You said that you worked somewhere. I'd assume you worked a few other places before you started your own business. Let's talk about how you decided to take the leap from working for someone to working for yourself.
Yeah, I worked in the industry for 10 years before I went out on my own. And that 10 years was spent at 3 different firms. And so one of the things I wanted to mention too is, before I get into your original question, is when I started working at the first firm, I had some exposure. Like I said, I went to this academic magnet school. So a lot of the kids in the school were pretty well off. And so I was able to see people who had money, even when I went to college, like, a lot of those kids, of course, their parents were paying for their school. They had a huge allowance. That was more than what I was making. And they were able to just kind of spend freely. And then even if they did work, it was like, oh, I'm going to work at my uncle or my dad's doctor's office, and they're going to pay me $15 an hour. I don't have to spend the money on anything, so I can save it. And when I graduate, I have $20,000 in an account. I didn't have that luxury. And so it's like, I saw people that had a lot more than I was accustomed to having. But once I started working in the industry, it was like a different ball game. I mean, we worked with people who were worth millions of dollars, and I saw like a lifestyle that I had never seen before. So it was very interesting to work in those environments with people who just have these life experiences, and in some cases have multi-generational wealth that I never knew was possible. And I never knew like the extent of how much money was out there, like how much people actually had.
What was your feeling in those moments? Was there like an aha moment? How did you internalize seeing that?
I think more than anything, it was motivational. Just from starting out in my first job in college, I was like, okay, I have to contribute to my 401k. And so I did that right away. I was like, I have to save for a rainy day. I have to save for a house. And we'll talk about that in a future episode. But I made sure that I was doing all of these things with my money because I was learning from what these other people did. And I mean, we had people who were self-made millionaires. Like they worked normal jobs. They weren't making a ton of money, and they just saved a lot of money over the years. They invested and were able to retire with a few $1,000,000. But I also worked later in my career. I worked with what we call like ultra high net worth clients. So a lot of our clients were in the 10 million and up range. Our largest client was worth like over 100 million. We saw people who had multi-generational wealth. So I was seeing like trust fund babies and people who were living off of an allowance that they get from a trust, and they've never worked a day in their life and are 50. So, so it's like that side of it, when people had like way too much money, like more money than they needed in their lifetime, that side of it got a little annoying to me, to be honest. And that's part of the reason why, I left and wanted to start working with young professionals and people who were still kind of scrappy and who were trying to make it. But yeah, I mean, working with like I guess on the lower end of the millionaire side, those people really gave me motivation.
I love it. I think it's such a good point too, to bring up. We live sometimes in a bubble and we don't know anything outside of our bubble until we've been exposed. So much of what we're trying to do to make the next generation better, or, people are raising children and like, I just want them to have a better life than I had, sort of thing. But a lot of that has to do with exposure. And where do you get exposure from? Like, you got exposure from like actually working at the job and seeing other people's personal finances. Like, oh, 1 million is a thing, like, to have in your bank. And, like you said, they didn't do anything amazing. They're not famous to get $1 million. Oh, 10 million is a thing, and this is how these people are handling it. And this is why they value paying for advice. And you get to learn the intricacies of what's the story behind this. And, oh, this is a realistic thing that is available. Some of us don't even have a purview to even think about, how do I get $100 in the bank? How do I get $1,000 in the bank? But to open the door to see, oh, here's what it's like to manage 100 million is it's like, I'd imagine it's mind blowing. I didn't get to work at a firm like that. So, but I've definitely learned a lot over the years of the different ways that people are handling their finances, and, seeing a $40,000 earner save 20,000 and seeing a $400,000 earner not be able to save 2,000. And so those are the kind of lessons that you learn about how just organizing yourself accordingly and really getting on board with what you want to do is, game changing. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the money discussions that you're having with the people around you. So you're a financial planner. So you're having conversations with clients. Like I said, you're a human, you're an individual, a beautiful brown girl. You're having discussions with your friends. You're having discussions with family members. What do money discussions look like with the people in your life?
Yeah, it's interesting because even though my grandmother and family talked to me about budgeting and saving and just kind of some of the basics, we didn't talk in detail. So I didn't really know, outside of seeing my grandmother, pay her bills, of course. But I mean, like with my uncles, I never knew how much they made or how much they had saved or how much they were saving as a percentage of their income or a dollar amount. That we never talked about the details. It was just more broad, big picture, kind of this is what you need to do. And then even with my friends, a lot of times, I think in our little financial planning bubble, like we talk about money all the time. And it's like, we'll share all these details about, our businesses or personal financial situations. But I think with like friends who are outside of my financial planning bubble, they still feel kind of hesitant to talk to me about money and about specifics.
Do you think it's just like the general friend thing? Like they wouldn't feel comfortable even as just a friend talking about it? Or does it like add an extra layer that you're a financial planner and so there may be a little bit of self-conscious about?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both because I do have friends that are like, I really would love to work with you, but I just feel like I need to get my life together first. They're like, I don't.
Story of my life.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want you to judge me. And I'm like, well, you need help to get your life together. Like, that's fine. Like that's why we're here. You don't go to the doctor and they say, oh, go get healthy and come back and see me. They're supposed to help you get healthy. So that's definitely part of it. Just the fact that it's like I am a financial professional and they feel like there'd be some sense of judgment there if they share too much.
Okay. So talking as best you can when people kind of allow you to talk about finances.
Yeah. Even with my family, like I look at my uncles and I've been doing this for almost 17 years now. And it's like, I think they just in the last few years got comfortable like talking to me about more specifics with their financial situation.
Like, we got an expert in the family. Let me ask her what she thinks about this sort of thing.
Yeah. And it was funny, like even when I started my career and I was fully licensed, like I was working with people who had a lot of money. It's like, they still were telling me things like, oh, well, you can do this and that. I'm like, yeah, I talk to clients about this. Like, they never took me seriously until just a few years ago.
Girl, you are preaching to the choir. Take it from a former athlete where we were just like, oh, sports. That's it. It's like, no, I have a finance degree, a master's degree in business, a certified financial planner. List goes on. Like, I really know this, guys. I'm spending all day doing this. But how you are perceived versus how you actually are is a thing that could definitely slow people down from taking the steps they need to access the resource. All right. So as we get ready to kind of wrap up, let's bring it present day. As a financial planner, like I said, everybody kind of thinks you got it all together. You got all these things happening. So can you kind of give us like a broad overview of like the approach you're taking to organizing your finances right now?
Sure. One of the things that as a financial planner, I know we preach financial planning and hiring a professional. I do not have a financial planner.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's something I definitely want to do in the future is to have a financial planner. That's something that I just haven't to date. But as far as taking care of my personal, finances, I track my spending in Excel. So I look at my budget at least once a month and usually more than once a month. I check my accounts frequently and I try to put things on autopilot. So like as far as, recurring bills, things that I know that are kind of, I try to set it and forget it. Same thing with savings, just try to, set it and forget it and make my life as simple as possible. And then I also try to set annual goals for myself. So it's really in all aspects of my life. So not only financially, but, I'm big on setting personal goals and socially, relationships, friendships, physical goals, fitness type goals, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, business, just everything. So I really do like to take the time each year to kind of reflect on what I've accomplished and then what goals do I want to set for the next year for myself.
I love it. So just so you guys know, I didn't tell her to say any of those things. If you've seen a theme here, sometimes I feel like, listeners are like, yeah, Lauren, you keep telling us to automate. Yeah, you keep telling us to set goals. Like our job, like you said, while financial planners are very important and can help you get where you want to go, these little basic parts of things, automation and setting goals is two really key things that you can do to get yourself started on the right track. So I love that you said that. And then what are you listening to, reading? Where are you going for financial knowledge? Are you all knowing as a financial planner?
I would like to think I am, but I know I'm not. So there's so many different things that I listen to. I love financial podcasts. I listen to so many colleagues. So many of my colleagues have podcasts and put out great articles and information. I write for Business Insider and have a blog on my website. And I read the information that my friends put out. I have friends that write for Forbes and Business Insider as well. And just through their blogs, But I'd say as far as honing in with my practice and the work that I do with my clients, something that I'm focused on are two things is incorporating more life planning and then behavioral finance into my client relationship. So I want to get more into helping clients really find ways to build their ideal life and use money as a tool to build their ideal life and learn some different techniques that are available and that are out there to get better at doing that. And then also, working with them on some of the behavior things and the habits that they need to work on to achieve those goals.
I love it. Yeah. So there's this guy called Kinder who is all about life planning. And it's kind of taking financial planning to the next level because we need to humanize this approach. There's numbers and there's quantitative analysis that we do as financial planners. But if there's not something that sticks to you as a person, there's not something that brings meaning or value, you're not likely to execute on it, is what we've kind of learned over time.
Yeah. And it's like, we could talk to clients who are, they're in a career that they hate. If they want to do something else with their life, like it doesn't matter how much money they have, they're not going to be happy. So can we shift their career? Or, some people are in relationships where they're not happy or, other situations. So what do we need to do to make sure that you're living your best life and a life that's meaningful to you? How can we use money to make that happen?
Yes, I love it. So we have made it to what I like to call the final sprint. This is where I kind of rapid fire some questions at you and you give me whatever answer you want. So are you ready, Chloe?
Okay.
So finish this sentence. That awkward financial moment when
you ask to get paid what you're worth.
Ooh.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot as business owners, women being people of color, and the workforce, even for people who aren't business owners. A lot of times we are underpaid and undervalued. And I think that we need to have those awkward conversations and we need to ask for what we're worth.
Amen. That is my theme for 2020. I am so tired of working for free. Like, what kind of nonprofit agency am I running over here?
Yeah. And I saw, it was funny. I saw on social media, someone posted like for 2021, make sure you ask what you're worth. And they have like little scripts that you can use to ask, like if someone tries to get you to do something for exposure, like how to respond.
Ooh.
But yeah, we all need to take notes.
Yes. Yes, we do. And also hold ourselves accountable. I know I'm going on a little tangent, but hold ourselves accountable to valuing others. I think we're prone to, can I get a discount? Can I get the hookup? Can I pay for half the time? What if I only need 3 minutes, et cetera, et cetera? But to consider the person on the other side of where you're trying to save money and whether you're devaluing them by simply asking for that discount.
Yeah.
All right. Best advice you've ever received.
The best advice I've ever received is to invest in yourself. I think that's so important. It goes beyond just with our businesses, investing in our businesses, personally with your skill sets. If you're working in a job, continue to work on your skill sets and improve your skills so that you can easily transfer into another job if you need to. Invest in your physical health. I have friends that think I'm crazy because I pay too much for my gym membership, but that's something that's important to me. I don't want to pay the $10 gym membership. I want to pay the one that that I know I'm going to go to and that they're going to keep me accountable. Pay for good quality food. I think paying for mental health, whether that's therapy or other things that can help you improve your mental and emotional health. Those are all things that are important.
Yeah. For people who don't have clear financial plans or are not able to save, I usually just say try to find $200 in your budget. I think whether you are a $50,000 or a $500,000 earner, most people can find $200 a month in their budget that's going to something that's not actually improving their life. And what if instead of the $10 gym membership, you were able to get the $75 one and you were also able to fill in the blank of this other thing that's valuable that you can't seem to find dollars for by simply just saying there's $200 in this budget somewhere. We all tend to throw money away on something. There's kind of like this black hole of finances. So I really appreciate that insight into there are things that cost a little bit more, but they're also valuable to me and they're adding value to my life.
Yeah, it's all about aligning your spending with your values.
Yes, yes. I love it. I love it. All right. Something you do for fun that doesn't cost anything.
One of the things is hiking. I love to go hiking. Not only is it great exercise, but it's just time to be in nature and be still. One of the things that I try to follow is if you've heard of Deepak Chopra, he has the 7 spiritual laws of success. Of course, there's different things that, you follow, but one of the important things is just to spend time in nature on a regular basis and make sure that you're meditating and enjoying the beauty that's in nature.
I love that. And I don't think we mentioned, but you're an ATLian now or Georgian, no longer in Alabama. And I know there's really good hiking there because I did some earlier this year or earlier last year. Whatever. You guys get it.
But yeah, there's some great spots to hike. And even, just being in Atlanta too, we have horrible traffic. And so one of the things that I do is just when I'm in traffic, I'm sitting there, I try to look up and look around my surroundings, because sometimes I'll say, oh, I never even knew that building was there. And I drive by it 20 times a day or 20 times a week. But yeah, just taking that time to not get angry because I'm in traffic and just kind of focus on other things.
Yeah, that helps you kind of like reset your mindset. All right. Last but not least, what is one thing that you would like to improve about your finances in the upcoming year?
The big thing is to start contributing to my retirement accounts again. And so,
hallelujah, girl. Hallelujah.
Yeah, I think we all know the struggle. Like if you own a business, and especially if you started it from zero, you know the struggle, and it takes several years to become profitable. It's not an overnight success thing. And so left my job and started my business. I had to stop contributing to savings and retirement and everything. And so I've slowly kind of started building up my savings again. And I want to be able to contribute some money to a retirement account. So that's my big goal.
It is simple but real. Some people don't realize.
Yeah.
I am same journey. This was my first year, actually. I was able to do it this year for the first time in I think like 6-ish years. So it's a thing. And I think people just take for granted that you're always going to be able to do that. Or that, like I said, that what things we're definitely doing because we're financial planners. Like there's a limited amount of dollars and you've got to prioritize. And for the last 6 years, that's not been a thing. But I've also been able to see like how cool it is. Like because I started early, I'm still not behind my peers, even though I took a break. Would I have liked to contribute for the last 6 years? Yes. But I'm also like not like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to retire. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too. It's like, I mean, I was definitely grossly underpaid when I was an employee. I mean, even with the little bit that I made, I was able to make a lot out of it. And I was able to save a lot and invest a lot early. Like I said, I started contributing to retirement accounts like right out of college. So I'm definitely a lot farther ahead of people that make double my highest salary.
Living proof that the things that we're telling our clients to do, slow but steady, do work and will produce results for you. Okay, one last thing, the action item that's going to allow you to contribute to that retirement plan this year. What do you need to do?
Yes. So with building my business, the biggest thing is just focusing on my revenue generating activities and making sure that I'm not doing a lot of busy work. So I have my list of my revenue generating activities and try to hold myself accountable so that I'm focusing on those things. I pay myself a flat amount each month to cover my living expenses. I want to make sure that I keep my paycheck the same, even though my income is projected to be a lot higher this year. And so that'll give me the additional profits that I can allocate to really just put a big chunk into retirement accounts at the end of the year.
That is amazing. Actionable, easy to do. I love this term, revenue generating activities. I think that
yes,
we need to take that and hold on to it. That's a nugget. All right, we have made it to the finish line, even though this is not the real finish line like it is for other guests, because we are going to be seeing you in episodes to come. In fact, for 11 more episodes. So if you love Chloe and you want to hang out with her more, never fear, just 2 weeks from now, you will be able to, because we're going to be bringing you some awesome topics. I mentioned them earlier at the top of the show. So even though we are at the end of the show, I want to continue with the regular process that we do. Stand on the podium, shout yourself out. You have made it to the finish line. Tell people where we can find you, how we can support you, all the stuff.
Sure. My website is financialstaples.com. And like I said, I have a blog there. You can find me also on Twitter and Facebook at Fin Staples and on Instagram at Financial Staples.
I love it. Chloe, thanks so much for being on today. Thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself with the audience. And I really look forward to the series. We are getting ready to bring the heat. So make sure that you guys tune in because it's going to be awesome.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Chloe and that you're looking forward to this series we're getting ready to bring you. It's going to be awesome. 2 things that Chloe hit on I wanted to circle back to before we wrap up today. One is that I don't want people to judge me statement. So many people are struggling with that. I don't want to be judged. Well, guess what? Judgment is unavoidable. You cannot control what others think, but you can control your own progress. Let them judge. Go get your goals. You got this. The other thing she mentioned that I thought was a gem was this idea of revenue generating activities. It is so easy to get distracted by being busy, and it's important that we work efficiently and not waste time because time we know is priceless. So I just want to wrap up today by asking you, what time sucker that is not generating any revenue for you do you need to cut out? As always, if you have suggestions for guests, would love to be a guest on the show yourself, or any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at worth-listening.com.